Thank you very much for inviting me. I think the title of the symposium is very topical. I think it's the right topic at the right time. It is things that we at the Rinie Institute are thinking about very much, actually. Because one of the basic questions that arises from this topic and that is put forward to us today is, what does it mean to be human? These are the questions that are central in this session, and I will not be able to give a full answer, of course, but these questions are on my mind, actually, and they are part of a lot of projects at the Rinie Institute. We did a project on synthetic biology, human enhancement, the digitalization of public space. Currently, we are involved in a project for the European Parliament, Making Perfect Life. I'll show you some visions that we evolved about, okay, what's actually is the human condition at this moment. We all know we had the Industrial Revolution, started some 200 years ago. That's the machine age. We're still living in that age. And the core guiding principle we actually recently discovered in 30 or 40 years. And I noticed this morning that it's not a really popular topic, because only 4% of the people think this is an essential topic, but environmental sustainability. I think that's kind of the guiding principle of how we want to deal with the environment, the nature that surrounds us. But we're now living in the information society. It's not the machine era, but the bio-machine era. And I think this quote says it all. We're experiencing a kind of inflection point, meaning that for all these centuries, we have been trying to cope with our environment, trying to control our environment, but since the Second World War, actually, we are guiding technology towards ourselves, towards our internal nature, you could say. I always like to make this analogy. While environmental sustainability is kind of the guiding principle of the last 2 centuries, the Industrial Revolution. If we think about the Information Revolution, we need a new kind of guiding principle. I would call it human sustainability. And how to really define this, I think it's as hard to define as environmental sustainability, actually. But still, I think it's important to think about that. Another thing about the information society, I think while the Industrial Revolution is guided by this idea of mechanics, the machine, the mechanical machine. But if you look at the information society, the way how engineers define life is by this digital control paradigm. So we look at life, biological systems, all kinds of processes from a computational view of life. What does this mean? This means that if you look at the development of the information society, we started automatization of production processes. Actually, the machine. We did digitalizing the machine age. Next step in the 90s, we have ICT. So the convergence of information technology with communication technology. So we're digitalizing communication. Today, we are digitalizing social organization. People call that the social web or the Internet of Things. That's the digitalization of public space. So what is it? What will we be doing for the coming 10, 20, 30 years? I think we will be digitizing human life. And this morning we had this discussion about synthetic biology. Actually, that's really driven by this digital control paradigm. There's even this comparison between biological systems and making transistors. computers, actually. Well, Kelly talks about the one machine. I call it the one bio machine. And here is an interesting example how life is being digitized. There's an ape, actually, is walking on a treadmill in America. His brains are scanned, and the signal is computed, and it is sent over the ocean to Japan, and it's used to let a robot walk. You see. So actually, this digitization of life, I mean, I think we have 4 technological revolutions that are of importance. The biotech revolution, I think a lot of things have said about that today. The materials revolution, we talk about nanotechnology, information technology, and cognitive sciences. And the interesting thing is that these 4 distinct technological revolutions, they converge. And that's what they call NBIT. Over the last decade, we talked about nanotechnology. We had a large discussion in the Netherlands. And yesterday, the Dutch debate talked about nanotechnology. And the Raadhuis Institute advised the parliament, also advised the Dutch government, that we said, okay, the lessons learned from the nanotechnology debate and the lessons learned from the biotech biology debate, you should use that for the coming decade to create a vision on NBIT convergence. And I think that's also a message maybe to the Belgian government, although you haven't yet had I think the basic interesting thing about how do these key technological areas, how do they converge, I think is to look at this way. What the main interesting thing is that the physical sciences, they converge with the life sciences. So the physical sciences have always dealt with dead nature, but not anymore. And the life sciences, well, they've always dealt with living nature, biological systems. But these things are converging. And actually, it goes 2 ways. In one way, you could say biology becoming technology, meaning that the physical sciences are inspiring the life sciences. And it's also going the other way around, that the biological sciences or the life sciences are inspiring the physical sciences. And that means technology is becoming biology. So you could say that we have these 2 big bioengineering megatrends. Biology becoming technology, and technology becoming biology. If you consider what this means for designing human life, which is the theme of this session, you could say that there are more and more ways of intervening in living nature. See? More new ways of intervening in human nature, not only on a material level or on the animal level. We just saw this brilliant talk about chicken, how we intervene in chicken. But more and more we're starting to intervene in human beings and also the brain. But besides that, this notion of biology becoming technology, there's a new kind of development. What you could say is technology is becoming alive. So we got all kinds of new type of artifacts. We thought about artifacts as a machine, as a dead machine, but now this machine is getting characteristics of, well, living systems. So they are biosocial and cogno-inspired. And I'll give you a couple of examples of what this digital control paradigm actually means for our human conditions. First question, to what extent can we control these type of things? Well, here you see this rat, and scientists can remotely control the way it moves. And the big question is, and that's kind of a fearful question, can we do the same with human beings? Can we control the movement or even the behavior of human beings? Well, what you see, it's a kind of first step. Deep brain stimulation. At this moment, some 50,000, 60,000 people in the world use these type of technology. An electrode in the brain. It's mostly people that have Parkinson's disease, and this technology is used to reduce their tremor. But it's, in a lot of cases, some 30-35%, okay, the tremor stops, but you see that also the personality of the patient changes. And there's one case in which the person became a real spender and became a real womanizer, and that's kind of symbolizing that picture of this Hummer.
That's normal life. That's normal life.
That's normal life. Actually, it means that we're not totally in control. But I think this is a very interesting example. I think millions of people at this moment, they are playing games on the internet, these massive online games. The interesting thing is that because these people, millions of people, went online, went into the virtual world, the companies behind that, they were given the opportunity to really check the behavior of all these people. And that's what they do. They scan the behavior. And they check out, very scientifically, okay, how can we make this game so exciting, that it's not too frustrating because it's too hard, and it's not too easy to be boring. So they set up a very, well, they kind of optimized the reward schedule. And in that way, they are able to get the player in a kind of flow. And it said here, kind of, the game mechanics, well, leads to a kind of total engagement of the player. So I would say that's a kind of example in which these game makers, and it's probably because it's quite an unconscious process, are able to get players engaged in the game. Well, what you see at this moment, and I think it's one of the buzzwords of, well, this year, is that people want to use this game mechanics in real life. For example, for people to get on a healthy life, or in this way to have a driving behavior that's kind of more sustainable. It's called the gamification of life. And you can see that while in the virtual world, this is really working. It's really paying out. But in the real world, I think engineers are not yet in control. Well, if you're driving your car, there are all kinds of ways of, trying to influence your driving behavior. We know the TomTom. But here's a new thing, a kind of chatbot that really tries to, seduce you in a very nice way to drive, carefully and in a sustainable way. Another way, and here we go into the technology, that's eye tracking. It's a system which looks at you, it looks at your eyes, and if you're scared or show some emotion, the automobile can take over your driving behavior. If you go into that direction, you see that we use machines to scan the way we look or our emotion. That's this notion of tracking the expression of your face. There's technology in which can look at your emotion and detect what kind of emotional state you are in. And I would expect that this type of software will become, available on your mobile phone, for example. So you can check in the conversation, for example, with your partner, what kind of emotion she or he is experiencing. And this type of technology, I think, links to this question of transparency. What kind of things do we want to hide? Or what kind of things do we want to get into the open? Then I think kind of the last big issues, or here again, this is an example of the Volvo S60. It's just been released on the market, and it has a pedestrian detection with full auto brake, and this works until 35 kilometers an hour, which means that the technology here will take over the driving behavior of man, kind of completely. And I think this type of developments, here you see remote killing using drones. These type of drones are used a lot in the war in Afghanistan. And also robots are being introduced in elderly care systems. This puts up the question is, okay, what kind of human activities do we want to be outsourced? Do we want to be taken over by technology? Well, this convergence of technology, but also this engineering view of life, in which we see, in which engineers, kind of think that human life can be digitalized, can be automized. It challenges all kinds of regulatory practices, and it challenges all kinds of fundamental concepts we look at human life. And for me, maybe the most important question is, okay, if we look at human life, and maybe we don't know how to define it, but if we get along with this technological development, actually, do we know what kind of things we don't want to use? And maybe we could have a discussion about that. Thank you.